So we're into the fourth letter to Thyatira. And again, this is John. He's a pastor in the ancient world, in the Asia Minor area, writing to 7 actual churches. And so they're contextualized to these actual churches in some pretty unique ways. But they're also blown out and universalized. So every one of these letters was also meant to be read by every Christian of John's day and all the way to our day. And so we'll continue to dive into this fourth great letter and see what does Jesus have to say to you and to me today. Revelation 2:18 through 29. Write this to the angel of the church in Thyatira. These are the words of God's Son, whose eyes are like a fiery flame and whose feet are like fine brass. I know your works, your love and faithfulness, your service and endurance. I also know that the works you have done most recently are even greater than those you did at first. But I have this against you. You put up with that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophet. You allow her to teach and to mislead my servants into committing sexual immorality and eating food sacrificed to idols. I gave her time to change her heart and life, but she refuses to change her life of prostitution. Look, I'm throwing her onto a sickbed. I am casting those who have committed adultery with her into terrible hardship. If they don't change their hearts from following her practices, and I will even put her children to death with disease, then all the churches will know that I am the one who examines minds and hearts, and that I will give to each of you what your actions deserve. As for the rest of you in Thyatira, those of you who don't follow this teaching and haven't learned the so-called deep secrets of Satan, I won't burden you with anything else. Just hold on to what you have until I come. To those who emerge victorious, keep my practices until the end. I will give authority over the nations, to rule the nations with an iron rod and to smash them like pottery. Just as I have received authority from my Father, I will also give them the morning star. If you can hear, listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Okay, there's so many images and Old Testament references going on in here. We'll try to cover as many as we can. The big obvious one is we're going to just jump into Jezebel, and this story can be found, let's say, 1 Kings 16 and chapters all around there. But Jezebel is one of the most famous figures in ancient Israel. So she was the wife of Ahab, who is one of the most notorious, evil kings. Kind of a perfect contrast to who David was supposed to be, for instance. But behind Ahab was Jezebel. And so throughout, there's so much could be studied and drawn out about what this wicked king did. His actions, his pettiness, his passivity, the way Jezebel kind of led him by the hand, and there's just a lot going on there that's just great to get into. And one of the things she clearly did was to lead Israel toward idolatry. And so there was a lot of sexual immorality, eating food sacrificed to idols. She's the one that started the worship of Baal and Asherah and all this. And so there's a ton going on here that apparently is paralleling whatever the church in Thyatira is facing in the first century. And so it almost sounds like there's another a leader, maybe a prophetess, claiming to know this right here, the so-called deep secrets of Satan. That sounds ominous, but maybe whatever that deep secret was, there's this kind of cultic teaching going on in Thyatira, leading some of the Christians astray to say, oh, maybe come over here, eat this special food, and along the way, let's commit some sexual immorality and find God that way. And so there's something going on here. I think this is really fascinating when I made this connection, though, but all of this connects really well with what Jesus promises them at the end. Don't do this. Stay away from the Jezebel and from these teachings that would lead you astray. And instead, I will give you authority over the nations to rule with an iron rod to smash them like pottery. That's a direct quote from Psalm 2. And what's fascinating about this, Psalm 2 is typically looked at primarily as a prophecy about Jesus himself. It's the one that says, where God says, he will be my son and I will be his father. He will rule the nations with an iron rod, smash them like pottery. There's a very messianic, kingly fulfillment in Psalm chapter 2, or Psalm 2. But what Jesus is saying here, where he clearly is maybe the first fulfillment of Psalm 2, he's saying, all of my people, we're all supposed to be a kingdom of priests, right? Rulers over God's creation. And apparently we are taken up into Psalm 2 as well. We also are the ones who are supposed to rule the nations. We are the ones who receive authority from Jesus' Father, from our God. And just as a contrast here, Jezebel was, in a very false, misleading way, enticing Ahab toward authority and power over the nations. And it was a train wreck, and it was wrong, and it was hurting people, and it was dehumanizing. Jesus, by contrast, also offers rulership over the nations, authority over the nations, but in a way that has nothing to do with the life of Jezebel and Ahab. So there's this great contrast between the type of rule that Jesus envisions for his people and the type of rule that people like Jezebel and Ahab would be going after. And so there's a lot you could just continue to reflect on that. The last kind of interesting little tidbit is this image. I will give them the morning star. This is another one where Psalm 2 is originally and mostly used to talk about Jesus. The morning star is also one that Jesus himself gets that title, morning star, at the end of Revelation. There's a couple clear places in the Old Testament that use the morning star. So what is this morning star? What is this? It seems to be, it's probably the planet Venus, and in the night sky to this day, but the ancients really told this whole story. Venus is the last light that you can see in the night. As the sun is starting to rise, it's the last light every night that you can still see because it's closer, but it seems that the story that was told was that this became the morning star that was always waiting the dawn. And so where all the other stars, as the night sky is getting lighter and lighter because the dawn is coming, it shines out till the very end. And so there's a bunch of different narratives and stories you could say about that. One idea of like, what does it mean that we, God's people, are given the morning star? Yeah, I kind of think of it like, in this world of darkness, we are meant to be the bright light shining, waiting the dawn. So the dawn meaning like Christ's coming, his kingdom coming, breaking into earth, the second coming of Jesus, all of that. It's like the dawn is coming and we know it, and we are supposed to be this bright light holding out. When all the other stars go out, we're holding out for the dawn and becoming this kind of image, this witness that the dawn is coming. And so there's something, I think, maybe poetic and beautiful about that. There might be other ways to understand what does it mean to be given the morning star, but that image of the world is in darkness and we're supposed to be the bright light, shining out, waiting diligently and faithfully for the dawn, for the dawning of Christ's presence and coming into the world.